Hey, Honey Watch Day. This is Toksa Hour. I am Maggie Ross, and I am live from Porcupine, South Dakota, along the Porcupine Creek where the porcupines roam. And I am honored to have Chas with us again. And she's coming live from, I forget her creek, on the
Well,
Cheyenne Indian Reservation.
I'm actually up near Pier. I'm looking at the Missouri River right
Well, I
now
was kind of
today.
wondering. I was
Yeah,
kind of wondering.
you know
You
me,
thinking of that?
I'm always traveling around, so you gotta get out of town on the weekends. But yeah, no, I'm looking at the Missouri River here in Pier, South Dakota. Looking at to see if I can see any signs about poor ex-governor Kristi Noem's demise. And I tell you how tickled I am, Maggie. But before I go, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it so much. And hello and good morning to everyone else who's out there. What a week, huh?
What a week. I know. I was in a meeting when it happened. And it was just like right in the middle of the meeting, somebody looked at their phone and they're like, they fired Kristi Noem. And we all almost celebrated.
Yeah. I know. Everyone was really happy, and I think that before that, folks were like really excited about watching her being grilled by the House and the Senate. I mean, they got some good jabs in. And but you know how let her boyfriend or whatever, that chief of staff guy or whoever, he's a Trumper. So instead of firing her and sending her home with her tail between their legs as they should have. The other thing is that I read a Daily News article or some kind of the Gawker, one of those, said that the blanket was not a blanket. It was a suitcase full of her sex toys. No kidding. That's what they reported.
What?
Yeah, that's what someone said. It wasn't a blanket because a blanket is so weird. Like that seems like a weird thing. No, it was a suitcase full of their their uh, lingerie. I don't know. That's what one of the people posted. But I kind of believe all those posts anymore because they're lying to us so bad that people are telling the truth, telling on them, and I guess that's turning out for how it should be. I do feel like there's a different spirit in the air, and I don't know if it's after Renee Good and Alex Preddy, where like the people of America actually figured out that the government doesn't care about them, and so there's a lot of pushback now, and on social media and all that other stuff. Me, I've been off Facebook for a little while, but I broke my fast this week after um, um, the Senate voted just to give the Trump all-time war powers. Did you know that the Senate voted this week? They had something up there, and 4 Democrats voted for it to give him unlimited things, and then two Republicans voted against it. And it's really telling then. So that's the Zionist, the Russian hold on our government. These people who are voting to continue to give this man who, now we know, if you were paying attention to the Epstein files, he's a rapist and he's a murderer, and he's needs to be arrested, not be sitting in the Oval Office destroying America. Right? I do
Yeah.
feel like there is a little bit of a switch about that. Um, in the public opinion, I do. I feel like a lot of support for MAGA is bots and racists. And racists are not the majority of white people. So I do feel like white people are having their come to Jesus moment. Like, are you guys gonna let it all go down, or you gonna stand up and do something? It's been like this since the beginning, Maggie. That's the thing. It's like people don't understand the history. It never included us. We were merciless savages. You know, Black folks were, 3/5 a human, and you had to have land in order to vote. It's like, the women had to fight like hell and get arrested and get beaten and get done all that in order to get their vote. but hey, it's still like, I don't know, white women get a lot of, um, a lot out of the patriarchy and a lot out of white supremacy. And so, it's really kind
Except
of
for in
that.
the case, except for in the case of the Epstein files. They don't there. Like
That's right. That's right. That's right. And they're seeing all these men around them that don't care about them. And you notice that they went, of course, to the poor places. They went to the poor, got the poor girls, who the men who just offered up their little daughters. Sickos, people like, that's the thing. It's not in our it's that's why it hurts us so much, finding out and living in this culture. It's like we value children, but over and over and over again, we're finding out that Washitu's like hate kids. Like they'll put them in the mind to see if they can. There's breath down there. They'll let ugly old men rape them. They'll let crazy people run around with machine guns, just going to town in kindergartens. And they don't give a shit about kids, and they all act like they're pro-life and all this stuff. No, they're just I think a lot of them are misguided. They're because they're so ignorant, educated on Epstein class material, and so they think like that. The other thing is that I think a lot of people are putting it together that last 20 years or so definitely have been formed by these billionaires who could care less about young girls. And look at all the corporations of the sickos that are involved. Lex Wexner, in Ohio, they say Ohio's another big hotbed for crazy shit happen over there, underground tunnels and girls getting raped. All the women in Ohio are like, yes, it's been happening. That's the thing. It's like these women aren't being listened to. In 2015, if the FBI put out a statement, we got legitimate evidence from multiple women who came forward and said, this guy raped me. Multiple people came forward to the FBI. And instead they said they made him president. That's why we know that, the rest of it is so compromised, because Russia and Israel, I mean, they probably just like share the senators that they own, right? I mean, I'm sure John Thune is owned by Russia. He's been to Russia. He's also been to Israel. So he's owned by both of them. He's just in it for the game, that guy. He just wants to, to continue to be a good soldier of white supremacy, that guy.
I think so. Like, I'm kind of interested there. I didn't get to see. I just had this is secondhand information, so I have to actually go read the article to see if that's what the article says. But anyways, my friend was saying that the Republican Party, the South Dakota Republican Party, does not want Kristi Noem back in South Dakota politics. So there's an article out there. I don't know where. She was just throwing out so many, like, it's on Kelloland, it's over here, it's over there, and then there's this article, and I'm like, well, all right, let me figure that out.
Well, why would they? She's shown herself to be a crook, and now they all look so stupid to be like, we're
what is it that they're saying with those airplanes? Is it like 2.8 million or something like that? Or is it more than that she's turned into luxury flyovers?
Yeah, well, the plane itself that she bought was, she said to be retrofitted, but that's what she's been cruising around in, right? They've been cruising around like that with a big old bed in it. Having a big old sex. Someone said Kristi Noem is leaving on a sex plane. I thought that was funny. Leaving on a sex plane. But it's and then I think the most damaging stuff for her is what her Senate and House testimony showed her to be. Like, she just didn't answer any questions. I think even not MAGA people, but like there's not everyone's MAGA. We have to remember that not, I think MAGA or like the Confederacy, those guys, those people never died out, right? We need to kill those folks because they're never going to see. I mean, I think that a lot of, I was thinking this last week, like and I just said that we need to kill these people, but like, I'm like old school ways, like some of these people cannot be reformed. Rapists need some of these pedophiles, all these guys need to be killed. Like public, drawing and quartering and, scaring the shit out of the rest of these guys who thinks that they can own anyone else. That you can, we have literal slavery happening in this country. And these people are protected by these laws, and these laws protect them. Well, no, I mean, we need to go back to old school violence. This is what happens when, this is what happens when you hurt little girls and, little boys, like vulnerable kids, like, that they don't care. And that's why, at first when I heard about all this, I was like, oh, good, we're not down. I was like, we're not down. But, in a lot of ways, Maggie, we have become down. A lot of our council people think like Washichus. A lot of our people, slut shame women. And, there's a lot of Washichu characteristics in our communities now. And that's by trauma, sure. But also, we have to hold ourselves responsible for our own healing. And I don't think a lot of times we do that to each other. And so I think that we let these, rampant sort of narcissistic Trump kind of people, those are bullies, abusers, right? Abusers are treated like Trump. I keep thinking this week about leadership. I've been thinking about, like, why are these people following him? Like, why are they following him? It's because they're all afraid. They're all afraid. They're all very cowardly. And I think when we don't heal from our stuff, we are afraid, and we'll do whatever the biggest bully in the block tells us to do. And so a lot of people don't know how to think for themselves. A lot of people, are stuck in that place where, don't make a noise. My family, they don't like that I talk politics and all this stuff. And why are you all, whatever? Well, because it's wrong, and we have to continue to advocate for the earth. We have to, and the earth, is in those little girls, in those little boys that are being passed around. We're being passed around, and that kind of living, hasn't changed since America started. And I do think if anything's going to salvage from this, we got to do a reset. We got to, unplug America and reset it into a place with true democracy. And, we could do that, I think, but it's very complicated, and, hopefully we do it. But geez, I don't know if they're going to let go of power without being violent. I mean, they're obviously being violent right now. The people are still being arrested in Minneapolis. I was going to check in with my friends over there before I talked to you, but I forgot. But because social media really is shut down, right? You don't get any news from anyone. Where are you getting your news from? I check so much.
See, I do Substack.
Okay.
And then like my phone gives me a list of art, like breaking news stuff, so I'll read those. Upscrolled, I'm on Upscrolled, so I'll get information there. So like your unfiltered stuff that's probably where it's at right now, is on Upscrolled, because everything else everywhere seems to be like in this filtered place, or like if it's too much of information, they immediately shut it down. I think like there's a couple things that kind of happened for me this week. I read this article, and it's on Upscrolled, and it's written by Downwind of Truth with Kate Justice. And it says, is this why the Treasury Secretary is blocking Epstein's financial records? And it's a really long article, but she talks about Kushner and his involvement and the purchase of the Saudi, I think it's a Saudi group family or something like that, is trying to purchase a gaming company. And this gaming is like EA, Electronic Arts, I think is what it's called. And Kushner is involved in it. And so what Kushner owns like 2.5% of this initiative for this EA purchase. So he's not going to really make, well, that which comes out to like $2.6 billion. So he's, this is crazy because it's way more money than any of us know. But anyways, it's a small percentage of the whole actual cost of the company in itself. But EA Arts or Electronic Arts, that company has over 700 million users. And so the Saudi group is going to get all of this data. So then that's what they want, is the data from this group. So Kushner is helping that because Kushner back in 2020 created an AI group or an AI chatbot. And the AI chatbot has been developed to analyze large sets of data. And so Kushner is using this as a merger so that he can sell then his the use of his software to the Saudi group and to other governments to show how his AI is able to analyze data. And then why this, people are like, it's just a game, but the gaming creates a lot of scenarios. And so it's looking at your response time, and it starts to track your behavior just playing the game.
Oh yeah. And they can also target the smartest people. So that, all of a sudden, they find the people who are really good at the game, and all of a sudden they're missing and gone. That's what they're doing. And that's right. People should be afraid because for a long time now. And did you hear though that Claude and ChatGPT were switched out because
Anthropic?
Anthropic said, no, we're not going to let you use AI to target. But apparently, and a lot of people think that they did use AI to target. That's why they targeted and hit the girls' school, and it was a double tap. The AI does the double tap, and that's what someone said. Was happening in Venezuela as well. They're just using these fun games. These guys sitting, in their little frack rooms, targeting brown people. And, I've come around to think that, we've been in a world war since 9/11. Like 9/11 was the first shot. And what happened was we lost it because it was, a false flag from Israel. And then Israel jumped right in there and, created our Department of Homeland Security, where the Twitter account is. And guess what? All the police across America since then have been trained in Israeli tactics, and guess what? A lot of the ICE people, are wearing masks, maybe because they're not from this country; they're from other countries doing whatever. And so this whole escalation to them building concentration camps has been happening right in front of our faces, funded by both parties. And that's the disgusting thing about it. There's Democrats have never pulled in ICE. Obama, used the drone bombs. So there's no one, either of them, all of them bought into the war on terror. And the war on terror has killed, hundreds of thousands of millions of people. And we've been involved in that. And so, those guys in Iran, did you see the prime minister? He said, well, we're waiting for you. He said, come, we're waiting. And I would be afraid as hell. If I was those guys, they're not going to be able to, ground troops there. We're going to get slaughtered. Word is they're talking about a draft. That's that's going to drive people, over. I do believe, and maybe this is what's going to happen. They're letting this pedophile rapist guy run. Who's obviously losing his faculties. Like so obviously. He's like slurring his words, and they said that the announcement on the Iran was Iran. I'm sorry. was done in the dark so as not to confuse him and his dementia. Like that's what talk was, that they made it dark so that why was he wearing a baseball cap? So to shield himself from the light, because he's like sundowning, right? Like it's crazy. They're all just he's a puppet. Trump is a puppet of these various military, police and the criminals. That's the criminal effect. Roy Cohen, who was Trump's mentor in the mafia. Like they're all like mafia. So the mafia, the CIA, and the banks are destroying the world and making politics, a battleground instead of like something that could help people. They create the $1 million anti-trans campaigns. They create the $1 million anti-women, all this stuff. Like that money that the Heritage Fund, all that's coming from billionaires, right? We're just a tool, right? Always have been. America's always just been a tool of the millionaires. All those little prisoners running around. Some of us know we're prisoners. Some of us think we're part of the crew,
Yeah. Excuse me. I think about all of that. There's another article in regards to what's happening down in Mexico and the cartel. And so they had arrested. I was looking for that article, but I'll have to go back and look more. But the cartel in itself, there's one of the leaders of the cartel, one of the Mexican cartels, that when they captured him or killed him, they found a bunch of documents on him, and the same kind of thing where he's running a pedophile ring. And so
probably
the list of
probably the same one. No,
and
I was going to say, they said that one of the ambassadors down there, they have video of him raping a child. So yes, it's definitely and it's the same one, same ring.
Yeah.
It's got to be worldwide. I mean, have you been checking out the files, Maggie, or you've been working? So you're doing like real stuff? Yeah.
I do. I look, and then I stop. I mean, I can only, because I get like triggered and get mad, and then my brain is like, I'm racing in it, like mad, like how does this stuff continue to happen? And then I want to spend like 24 hours just nonstop sending emails and calling Dusty Johnson and Rounds and Thune and all of that, like. So then I'm like, well, that doesn't help because they don't even care anyways. And I'm just trying to find, where do I focus this energy? It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like I've been doing it for so long that like, it's like personal, and like, I mean, it devastates me. It devastates me. It's like worse than I ever would imagine. But also, it's really, for me, freeing, because I believed in a lot of these things, and I believed in a lot of I believed in the American dream. Maybe even I was pretty naive. And I'll admit it. People. I totally admit it. It took me a long time to come around that this is a systemic, problem. I thought we could just, get our people in there. I thought representation was so good. But I was going to say too, did you see who else was in the files? Deb Holland was in the files. She was in the files because she rode on a plane with a guy who, I don't know if he was running for governor or if he is the governor of New Mexico. But they rode to an event on Epstein's plane.
Wow.
She was on the plane, so I don't know, and she's pretty Zionist, and so I don't really have a lot of respect for a lot of for that. People who are going to be supporting Zionism. Representation doesn't mean that to me. That's not my representation. People who are going to take money from corporations who are killing our people. The other thing is, I mean, it's really, that's the decider. And, I was thinking about it the other day, like, I never wanted to do all that stuff, but I was in those circles where, like, people are very powerful and make decisions and all that stuff. And I saw people, those people don't like people. They don't like the voters. And I didn't like that. I was never comfortable with that. I was like, I'm a voter. You guys are, we're all part of the same thing. But those consultants, they think about the voter like they're dispensable. I don't know if you remember, but in 2008, 2006, one of the campaigns that we had with the abortion campaign, the guy who was running the women's the abortion campaign was a man, Steve Hildebrand, who worked for Tom Daschle. And he wouldn't work with the gay folks, or like he kicked us out of me and Sonny. We were doing that documentary. Kicked us out of the Campaign for Healthy Families office. Wouldn't have anything to do with whatever. He was like, really, like he didn't like me. He doesn't like, we never had any conversations. We've been doing politics in South Dakota for so long, and like they only want one perspective. And it's the one that's going to keep getting themselves a paycheck. Steve Hildebrand, probably a millionaire by now because he's been making money. He's real smart, knows how to, run campaigns, knows how to, put himself out there. Great. You're a part of the destruction of, civic life. That's what I feel like. Like political consultants and the lobbyists. One time I went to school with a girl, and I went to school with a girl who was a woman, I guess now, but she was a girl. We were young then. But I went to college with her, and she's a big time lobbyist for the healthcare industry, and like making tons of money. And I'm like, I haven't had anything to do with her for a long time. And like one time we were friends on Facebook, and she was like bragging about something, and she was like, and I was like, she said something like, no, I said something. Oh, it's lobbyist. I said something about lobbyists being an unnecessary profession. And so she was like, oh no, like we do a great job of like, going through policy and explaining it to these Congress people. And I was like, dude, all three of my Congress people are lawyers. If they don't understand shit, by now they should never have been elected. There's no reason for you guys to be around other than you guys making money. And the thing about capitalism and about the society that will make money on everything is that what they do? That's what they do. Like if there's an opportunity for you to make money on people's think about the TSA. Like instead of fixing the TSA, they created the TSA pre-pass, so you can or pre-check or whatever it is. We're not going to fix stuff. We'll just pay people the people who have more money can have it easier. And that's what it's like this. Now they're going to take, they're trying to take away the right to vote. They're trying to, the SAVE Act is, and that's I can't believe we're not revolting at this point, but, Maggie, I've been waiting for that since I started having these conversations.
And I think too, like you look at how, where you were saying, like our tribes are, it appears like our tribes, and we know and we feel this, right? Like our tribes are resembling that behavior, our leaders. And so what type of leadership? Because and we also know that people are afraid. And so you see like a lot of this stuff coming out in social media where they're just whether they're using their real name or whatever, they might use anonymous, as they're posting or something, but where they're really coming out after like people within tribal governments, state governments, federal governments, whatever, it's because people are afraid of their identity getting exposed. And so we know that they also create laws to protect themselves. So we can be held, I mean, they could slander and libel anybody under the sun for all they care, but you can't do it back, like you can't say something back right away. Then they want to ruin you. They're going to drag you through court. They're going to do all of this stuff. And all of this or well, I shouldn't say all of it, but a good portion of this is being funded through these Zionist organizations to silence people in the world. They ain't even just in the United States, it's silence the people in the world. By doing this, using all of their money and their influence in the court systems, and people don't have money, right? People don't have everyday, like an Ikjewi Chasha, Ikjewi doesn't have the money to go spend, $10,000, $15,000 on a retainer to go and, do all of those things. And so the disadvantage is really big. And so we pay the consequence of the divide between the rich and the poor, because we can't defend ourselves. We don't have the influence in court, and everything costs money. And so it's just a big old game. It's a bought system, and we're not privileged in it.
We're not, and that's that's great, because like if you are privileged in the system, then there's something wrong with you. If you're making money, you're driving around, and your life is great, there's something wrong with you, because this system eats babies, right? It eats souls, and if you're happy and driving and every day going to work, oh, my life's so great, there's something wrong with you. People are not. This is not an unnatural system created by all kinds of violence. And violence scares people. So people are afraid. And, what can you do? Because you only know what you know. And people only listen to the people that they listen to. And so they don't find out other stuff, and they don't, reach out and, try to learn new stuff. And they just sit on social media. And that's why I'm on a social media fast, except for me blasting Thune and Johnson just coming back. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They don't care. But I said some ugly stuff. And I think I feel like it. And I feel like, we're at the point right now where if people aren't, willing to have difficult conversations to save, what's left of this country, we're not gonna. This is the end of it. Like, I've been talking for a long time about, that we're, it's up to us. Like, we have to change. And people are still, looking for outside consultants and having experts to come in and do that. I think that, we just don't trust each other, right? We can't, because we've had experience with each other, and we know people's, perspectives here in Indian country. And that's sad, because like, we should be trusting each other. We should be, saying, I'm sorry, I made that mistake. I'm sorry I did that policy. I'm sorry I haven't done nothing my whole time in office, but I've been really worried about getting reelected. And there's an unnatural system of leadership that runs us, right? We never were voting like that. We always and I don't think people remember or understand what it's like to be in a community that takes care of each other and makes good decisions. When we were at Standing Rock, we made a decision once to kick out a guy who had raped a woman, and then right away the IRA government from Standing Rock was like, oh no, let him back in. And so there's no, if you have a place where people are making decisions based on children first instead of money first, they'll spend so much time, our leaders, talking about, oh, we need to get this business, or do this consultant, or have this way. And what we really need to be doing is having these conversations that about what our culture is. Our culture is not run by men who get up and talk and don't let anyone else talk, and don't create community, right? Our culture was run by all kinds of different. The women did a lot of stuff. The women created all this stuff. I was reading somewhere where I found this really great book. I'll let you guys know I found this really great book. It's Fool's Crow and Power. It's out there. I've been checking out this place called WeLive.org. Everyone should check it out. It's like a library, free library online. And they just let you download books. And so anyway, there's this great book called Fool's Crow and Power. It was once someone was interviewing him, and he said in that book, he said, I can't find anyone to pass on my our ways anymore because everyone's too materialistic. And that was 20 years ago or whatever. And he said, the power comes from within us, right? It comes from within us, and the ceremonies, and us being able to know, the right words to say. But it comes from everyone in being united, right? The unity creates the power, and the unity, and so there's a cultural understanding that these ways work, right? And I feel like in some ways that some of our people might think that they don't work anymore, and they're Christian or whatever. And so that's what's happening in our things, that there's a lot of people don't think that this way works. Like we because we're so surrounded by capitalism, because we're so surrounded by disparity, because we're so surrounded by need, like they don't think that it works. But all we have to do is see how much we have, right? Everywhere we have so much. I'm here along the Missouri River. We have fish. We have all the things that don't cost money. We have those, nothing costs money, and the old ways, right? We can still live that way, and be good to each other, and all that stuff. Like, to need each other. Like, I don't feel like in a lot of ways, like we really have community anymore, and it's really sad. Like, because the IRA system is not ours, right? We didn't create it. It wasn't created by our people. It was suggested by white people. Oh, this might work for you guys, and gee, it hasn't worked. So we need to try something else. And the reason it hasn't worked is because poverty's like, you can't create little fiefdoms. Like, you can't create this little society and then act like it's like what it used to be, right? Like, and we just recreated with the haves and the have-nots, the half-breeds and the landowners and all that stuff. We just recreated America, and now we got a little bit of little tiny Trumps running around some reservations, like, who are doing whatever the hell they want because they own the police and they own all that stuff because everything's all corrupt. What we need to focus on is
I think we
teaching.
end up having like two versions of Trump running around, or maybe it's, I don't know, but it's two, like, because we do have native native ranchers, white ranch, whatever. They're mostly more, they have very little native blood in them, but they're here, and they're going around acting just like the Confederate people and marching around with their guns and acting and spewing all of this Christian hate and stuff. And then we have, and maybe it's not, so maybe we have the red MAGA and blue MAGA, kind of. So then we have some of our tribal leaders who are using and corrupting the system, doing it for their own, but they're not out supporting Donald Trump. But they're definitely supporting this continued process of colonization on the people.
Yep.
And I think too, you had said about like how people might how people might view this, right? Like, so this is something I've been thinking about the past maybe 2 months. So it's been something that I've been thinking about, like when people talk about who we are as Lakota people, and then they might say something like the power of it, like what you're saying, the power of being, in our own practice and existence. And then it will be said something like, my grandpa or my grandma or my auntie or my mom or my dad or whoever said um, that is very powerful. That life is very powerful. Don't play with it. So it's kind of like putting some fear, and then also like saying, um, as humans, we are naturally corrupt. So let's just stay in the church system. That's how
Yeah.
I like. That's how it's like positioning in my mind, and I don't know if that's a correct way of thinking about it, but that's how it's been positioning in my mind. Saying so, one, we're saying be afraid of who you are, and be afraid of your own power, and then we throw it into this whole like belief system and make that belief system very scary.
Yeah, that's right. It's power and control, right? It's power and control. And oh wait, I lost my headphones. I think I don't know. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's power. It's power and control. That's what it's all about. And because trauma creates this people who are fearful. Power and control works here. And the whole abuse wheel that was created. I think whenever with the domestic abusers. That's the way the country is being run. I mean, did you see Pete Hegseth's the way that they're talking to the press now is so demeaning and so just combative. Like they're like just being abusive people, and no one and everyone just letting them. Because that's the way the authoritarian thinks. And I've got authoritarians in my family, and that's a really hard thing because people, the colonization, all that stuff happened, and it hurt our people very bad. There's a lot of authoritarians in our communities, and that's a bad thing. And people, and I mean, I'm sorry, but it is. The problem is we have to come from a place of love, not a place of fear, and people act out of fear, and love is so hard. Love is so hard. Love is so hard because we're taught that we have to have this public face, and then we have to have this private, this other private face. That's where all the bad stuff comes out. That private face. You have to give me an opportunity to get rid of all my anger from what's going on in the public, right? But in the public, we have this demeanor, and we hold this, we are who we are. But in private, we're ripping into our kids, we're kicking, doing all this stuff. And think about a lot of our cultural leaders. They're all like men who target younger women, younger people. It's all like a lot of spiritual abuse that happens. I think think about all the spiritual leaders who lie to get women in bed. Power and control. It's all about the erasure of respect for bodies, for the land, for women. It's all about that. It's all about the erasure of our body autonomy. And it's the capitalism. Like you brought up a great idea. We were talking about the data earlier. We're willingly giving all this data over to them. Every time we jump onto our phones, every time we do all this stuff, our country, our people are so accustomed to allowing men who want to make things better with technology and all of this stuff. And we just let that happen in progress. We're all trying to move forward. Well, that's not progress. It's not progress for us to be listening. And the other, the reason why I think I'm glad that we started out talking about like white supremacy, because in those files too, it's a lot of like Jewish supremacy, and they call us goyams, and so they're racist, right? So they're racist who don't care about human beings, and so they're willing to just let these communities get obliterated so they can build a freaking hotel. They don't care. And so, we are being run by psychopaths, and there are little psychopaths on every res. And that's the thing. It's like when you traumatize people, they can become psychopath. They can become sociopaths very easily, and understandable. I understandable. People, respond differently to trauma, and so but I also believe that. we have to, continuously, and I really appreciate my dad and my grandma, who were Catholics, right? They were Catholics, but they always made sure, my dad did that we always, he ended up being a sun dancer before he died. But my grandma used to say that, we're Catholic, but there's nothing wrong with any other, and you show the great respect for the traditional ways. And so I think that was not something that a lot of families had. A lot of families were like, oh no, those are pagan ways or whatever. Do you see the attack on Hank said attacked pagan ways too. He said something about, these, pagans, like all of a sudden, we're at attack, under attack too. But we've always been under attack. And so,
don't you think too, Chas, that there's like this, so there's this response. And so what you were talking about leadership earlier, and how people, people are afraid of the leaders, so they're just agreeing to do. So everybody's afraid of Trump, so they're just agreeing to do. They're afraid of the billionaire class or whatever, the oligarchy. They're afraid of them, so they're just doing. And so oftentimes we look at that type of leadership, right? Like that's the leadership we model. That, so like there's no current leaders do not stand in opposition, right? Like you see that, we see it everywhere, and then we make it acceptable. So the punishment of free speech, the punishment of being able to say, no, I don't agree with you, and then the power and the hammer coming down on you and you lose everything, right? So
yep.
there's this thing that's happening. It's been happening. So to make us all fall in line and be complicit to the act, so nobody will say anything. Everybody's afraid. Everybody's afraid to say free Palestine. Everybody's afraid to say stop bombing Iran and stop killing children. Everybody's afraid to say Trump, allegedly you're a pedophile, but I don't even know if it's allegedly. I think you are a pedophile. It's like we're all in this game, and our leaders. So John and I do not give John Thune free space or free, I don't let him off the hook for this, because you're like the third most powerfulest person in Washington, D.C. and in our government, and you are not saying anything about women and about this pedophilia that's going on. And then Dusty Johnson, you want to be governor of South Dakota, and you're not going to say anything, and you guys are all righteous Christians, and you want to stand on this is the biblical sense. And so even like you're going to allow Pete Hegseth to go and tell the American troops that we are entering this war with Iran because it is biblical, and that Trump has been anointed. Really?
Yeah. No. I'm really glad you brought up John Thune again, because one of the things I posted when I grabbed him on Facebook, I said, I went and I looked at, they don't care about children. How many children have been killed by shootings since John Thune took office in 2004? It has increased 745%. Shootings. 745% since he took office in 2004. He is a MAGA guy. He's owned by Russia. He's owned by these big corporations. His legacy is the violence against children in this country increased at school by 745%. That's I even looked at it twice, because I was like, what? That's not, no way. There was 234, I think, or 5 shooting deaths in America last year at schools. I mean, it's just an amazing amount of, they don't care. John Thune is totally, he should be arrested. I've been saying that on Facebook, tagging him every time I can say he should be arrested, because he is totally responsible for the degradation of the Senate and the down grading of this society. He's turned it into a place where There's no integrity left in anything in this country, and that's his legacy. He came in and he was, you know what he was? He was a staffer. The staffers and the consultant class in Washington D.C. is a bed of vipers, and he went from, so did Dusty Johnson. He was a staffer too. He went there. They go there. They learn the system. They learn how to lie. They learn who to take money from, and then they just stay there and support their families with like mega contracts. John Thune got his son or son-in-law, elected to some office. They're just so selfish, and we shouldn't be surprised. So that's the thing. We shouldn't be surprised. We got to understand that these guys are protecting, violent, pedophiles who are raping babies, who are breeding babies to rape. Like literally, that's how sick those files are. And one of the files they had not John Thune. I looked for him in the files. He wasn't in it. He wasn't. I looked. He wasn't there for like some legislation, but I wished he would have been some kind of whatever. He's just in it because he hates he hates brown people. He hates the earth. He's just the number one Christian hater. Anyway, but Trump said something in those Epstein files. As he was raping that one girl, he said, "Let me show you how women are supposed to, young girls are supposed to act." And so, I bet that guy raped his own kids. I bet he did. He's a big pervert, and just disgusting. I mean, how it's a good thing, because he let us see that the morality of these people who vote for Trump are just disgusting. And it's funny too, because well, it's not funny, but when I was in high school, there was a guy right after I left from high school. One of our coaches. My coach was arrested for messing with the younger players, people I know, and he was arrested and he admitted it, and he spent time in the federal pen. And there were people in my small town who supported that guy. There was a family in that small town still living in that town who let their daughter date him when she was in high school. One of my friends he was my coach. But they had also let her date him, so they knew she was underage, and dating him. So it's these people, these Christians, will offer up their children to be raped, and then blame them for being sluts or something like that. It's like they're just like, and these are the biggest Trump. Anyway, the point was that those are the biggest Trump supporters who would write those letters in support of that rapist. The Bartletts, she's also on the Morro Grande and the chairman over there. Big ass Trump supporter sign, like one of those big 90-foot signs at her house. And so is she like a stellar member of the community still up there in Timberlake? Yes. Are people this is like a sickness in society. Like some people are okay with men who rape, and that's why. We are the way we are. If you're okay with men who rape, then you're okay with men who, lynch. These people used to take their children to lynchings. So, this was like in this century, last century, right? It's not like slavery times. Slavery was legal longer than it wasn't, in this last 250 years. When you think about it.
And it's still happening. It isn't that slavery no longer exists. It just changed. So,
it's the prisoners now, right? And I do think that's why they're building those concentration
and immigrants.
Yep.
And when you look
at women and children,
you look at what they're. So this is in the Senate. So this senator, he's mad at Kristi, right? Kristi Noem is just really catching it. And he's mad at Kristi Noem because this was a simple, easy process. We were to get rid of the illegal immigrants, and you turned it into this greater thing. So now people do not believe that we should be deporting immigrants because you turned it into this thing. You know,
That's
you got a woman shot in the face and shot another man, and you know, the white people, you're killing white people, you're not killing these brown people, kind of saying. And so he's just screaming mad at her, like, this is what you did. You this was, you know, the target was illegal immigrants, and you just started doing everything to everyone, you know.
they're racist. They're like, they don't care. Like, and we should know that. Look at what the makeup of the Senate is. It's all white people. They're all white people everywhere. And you know, you know, it's up to us to decide which one of them are going to stab us in the back or not. Not me. I don't even like that. That's why I kind of like don't even want to do the GOTV really, because I don't care about this system anymore. It's like it doesn't represent me. It's not for me. And you know, maybe whatever happens, you know, maybe maybe we'll lose this war and Iran can take us over, and we can then maybe I don't know. I wouldn't mind wearing a burqa if I could. No, I'm just kidding. That burqa would be too much for me. But also, the women in Iran were not were very free and very liberal. In 1954, when the first time the United States killed the leader of Iran. So you know, it used to be a much better place. We made that worse for them. We went in there and made it worse for them. So now, us in America, we're just experiencing what we've been doing to the world. And you know, to a lot of people, you know, our foreign policy is horrible. We do horrible things to countries for our own personal you know, enrichment. And this is, you know, on the res, a lot of people do horrible things to horrible people, or, you know, to other people just to enrich themselves. It's the same thing. So like, you know, enrichment is the goal. And so, you know, I think that, you know, for us, you know, as Indigenous people, we could create some kind of community that didn't involve all that. You know, we still can, and it's always possible. That's why I always felt like Standing Rock was like, you know, it was Standing Rock, you know, made me, I think, started my sort of distaste for the rest of this government. You know, they were ready and willing to take us out. At one point, you know, we heard Obama had infiltrated that veterans. When the veterans came down there, they're ready to take us out. Imagine if they would have done that. But what they did there was like really open up a bunch of minds. Is that we can live in different ways. Our people used to do it, and if you want to do it, it's not too hard. You just have to not care about what they think. You have to not care about succeeding in their ways, and not you know, live like them. Not live like them. You know, I mean, we should treat everyone that we meet, even our family, even more importantly, our family members and those people that we love, treat them good, because that's what it means to be Lakota, is that we're good relatives, right?
Yeah, I think there is like a potential for the shift to happen. However, like this power struggle in it, like where is everybody that has created a nonprofit, that has created something? Where are they in actually moving us towards self-governance, self-determination? All they did was became the next social service worker, right? So, okay, like NAHA, we're going to go and distribute all this free, take all this stuff to reservations and then just drop it there. We don't care about their cleanup. We don't care about how we're littering and creating all of this trash on reservations. So we're going to bring NAHA and give it to them like it's a sense of donations, gifts, or whatever. So people come to the NAHA sites, go through it, and then you still have a bunch of stuff people don't want. So like McDonald's, they donated all, you know, Bloody McDonald's donated all these McDonald's sweatshirts and shirts and stuff like that to NAHA. So they could get a write-off on it, tax write-off. And so then everybody's walking around with these McDonald's clothing because of NAHA. And I look at that and like, my grandkids brought some back because they were distributing them, and I'm like, you're not wearing that, McDonald's is killing Palestinian children. We're not about that. And, so I'd be giving them a hard time. So what do? We just throw them in the trash because I'm not going to let anybody in my family out there advertising for a murdering food industry. So, so it's kind of like that. Like, so nobody there, you don't really see everybody's campaigning on food sovereignty. Everybody's getting money for food sovereignty, but nobody's actually in the communities working on food sovereignty. And so where is that work happening? And that's where I think we need to get to.
Yeah. But that's a thing about, personal sovereignty. We can be sovereign as human beings and eat, as close to, ourselves and grow our own food and all that as we can. But, that it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of, personal, things that it's just not easy, right? Like, but the truth of the matter is, and this is what's happened, Lewis and Clark told Thomas Jefferson he needed to subjugate the Ochente Shikone, right? And, and we're subjugated, right? But we don't appreciate anything we get, right? I was thinking about like my friend, like her mom was got a really nice house and you just give it to them. And because they're Indians, like within 6 months, it's all like kind of wrecked up and there's not really, and then eventually it gets really wrecked up. And so like, if you give, nothing in life is that we're given is really something that we really appreciate, but we really appreciate stuff that we work for, right? We really appreciate garden, food that we grow. I'm still eating the squash that I grew last year. I still am. I make it still good. And so we can do those things, and people are way more sovereign than I am. Who don't even go to the grocery store and do all that stuff. You can do those things, but for us, it takes you have to be able to be in a position to refuse stuff, right? Like a lot of our people don't even have nothing, so they're not going to refuse anything. So it's a hard deal. It's a hard deal because like it's you can't teach someone who comes from a place who's 3 generations haven't had a job, and people who talk about all the time what my tribe owes me, rather than what do you owe your tribe. I was always raised like the what are you going to do for your tribe kind of stuff, and I never ever expected anything from them. And when like do get stuff, that's great, but like there's an expectation out there that we just that's what we are, is we just get stuff, right? And so it's a mindset, and if we get to a mindset where I'm going to eat my own stuff, I'm going to grow my own food, I'm going to live out here, then you're not giving, we give ourselves to the Facebook, we give we give ourselves to be mine. We give ourselves to the army, right? At a greater, higher per capita than any other race, right? We volunteer our kids up there and we treat them with honor when they come back. And we should talk about that because, why are we sending our people? We used to think that it was for a good cause. Well, now we know that none of these wars have been for a good cause. None of them. If World War II was for a good cause, we would have gone in way earlier than when we did it. Because the folks were already being dying. And plus, it wasn't just the 6 million Jews who died. There was over 100 million people who died in World War II. And we didn't come in there when all that. We came in when it benefited our banks. And we should understand that. Like this is all about banks. Like we're not fighting that. Also, I think a little bit of the Iran stuff, and I want to say that before we shut down here, is a lot of that is because of banks. A lot of the Venezuela and Iran are not in Rothschild's banking system. They want to create one world order, and you can't have big lapses like you had in Iran and in China, right? They want to control all the banks and all the places, and that's what this war is about in a lot of ways. That and and the military industrial contractors want to get their due, and everyone's making bank during the Trump administration, except for the American people who make less than $100,000 a year. right? All of us guys are all just like, swimming in the ugliness and trying to hide from ICE people and, just shocked and, offended at all the stuff that we're finding out that these guys have done, these leaders. And it's not just, Trump either. It's everyone. Like everyone would say, oh, get rid of Trump. No, Trump is the ugly, ugly pimple on the head of the nose. The rest of them are as rotten as him. And we're just, the fact that, the CIA and the bankers and the mafia thought that Trump was the guy that they were going to get behind, and we had to suffer it. I still blame Hillary Clinton, even though Hillary Clinton did a good job at the things. I still blame her because she shanked Bernie in the primaries. If we would have had Bernie, we would have had Bernie. We wouldn't have had the rest of this stuff. Bernie would have beat Trump, and except for Hillary sitting in there, saying it's me, 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 me. Well, no, not me. You don't get it. You don't get to be president. It's like I just feel like I just am so disgusted by her. Because I feel like, it's white women who are willing to, put themselves first in front of the rest of us. Because Bernie's always thinking about the rest of us, right? And always he's still a white guy, right? He's a Jewish guy, and he's not that great on Israel. He's not a Zionist, but he's not that. Maybe he is a Zionist. I don't know for sure. He might be a Zionist, but he doesn't support Netanyahu. I know that for sure. So.
Yeah, I think so too. I think also that in that process, like we have to figure it out as individual people. We need to figure out where we stand in these matters, because we give up a lot of our own power to everybody else, and then we just make do. We make do with whatever it is that has come. And so right now, like I said this last week, I think I was saying, I went, like I would normally go spend $200 some on groceries for the month. Not too long ago. I mean, not for the month, for every 2 weeks. So, but now that is like tripled. The same things that I would normally just buy, which is some hamburgers, some chicken, some pork, buy some milk, macaroni. I could just give you my whole shopping list, and it ain't very much because I cook from scratch, and I don't, I've just been making us do with what we can. And so what I would normally spend has now tripled. And so trying to figure that out, like you could get a raise, but it doesn't even matter because we're in a deficit. Like your income raise is like this, but then everything else it's like this. So everything's growing. So you're not even making no difference. It's no difference is happening for you. You're actually in more debt and more trying to just survive and put food on your table. And so I think that the power from within, we all have it, and we all have to start speaking to it. Because if we continue to be passive and if we continue to like say grassroots oyate, I'm grassroots, but then you're just allowing all of this to happen, like you're not standing up in accountability and holding people accountable because I'm grassroots, but I'm going to go ahead and get that over here. So like I'm grassroots, but I like to smoke PG, so I'm just going to look the other way for everything else. We have to find our own strength. And I truly believe it's women. Like women, we have to find our strength, and we have to be able to use our voice to protect our children and to protect our families. And so finding our strength to say, hey, this isn't right. This isn't what we need to be doing. We are going in the wrong direction, and this is not acceptable. And not be afraid. Like Chas, I think you and I always just take the hit, right? Like we say it and then we might end up on the unemployment line. But we still keep saying it, it's like we might not be everyone like, oh no, here comes Chas, here comes Maggie in the room, like, hey, here they come.
No, I know I say a lot of stuff that make people uncomfortable. And that's okay, because guess what? When I meet Creator, they're gonna know. I never not once shut up about this stuff. And I've always been pointing out what's wrong, and also what we could do. I don't just point out what's wrong. I point out like we could build. We could take care of ourselves as the Ochete Shikoni. We could if our IRA governments wanted to get together and say, hey, we just want one check. We just want to get along and have one, have one, all of this stuff. We could do that. We could, but we don't have people wanting to do that. They just want to control stuff. Like now they want to, I don't know, the nonprofits and the IRA governments are the same kind of problem. Both of them are just made up, to give us some kind of hope, and neither of them are ever produce, right? They never produce. They just serve their term, and then they move off into a better consulting position, and then make money for the rest, or go to work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs and make money for themselves. Like everyone's just out for themselves, and I think that's why it's so hard anymore to organize. And I actually don't think in a lot of ways that for us guys, we have much. We might have a lot of Lakota speakers, but do we have a lot of Lakota actors? People who act like Lakotas. I think a lot of people are use our culture as something to benefit themselves personally, and even on social media now, like everything's about ourselves, and it's a really sick place to be. In that place, I'm always really glad that I grew up before social media, right? And I knew what life was, and I knew how to listen, and I knew how to do whatever. And now it's just all like me. And and this is the trauma too, right? We're trauma makes us narcissist, and all this stuff, and that's some of that is totally justified. And I appreciate and support everyone who's wanting to focus on themselves, but focusing on yourself and getting for yourself in a system based on our stolen land, based on eating children. This is not good. Like do not want to do that. And so I think for us it's like the good thing is that the way to be is just to not care what anyone else thinks. And B, just to continue to do what our elders taught us, which is to speak truth to power, and to continue to advocate for indigeneity however we can. And we have to protect each other as relatives, and we have to protect the earth, and we don't do that by engaging in traumatic freaking political wars that don't even need to happen. 99% of the fighting that happens in our tribes don't even need to happen. We're not even fighting about. We're just fighting rats in the bucket, fighting each other, eating each other's tails off for no reason. And we need to be out there, planting our gardens and making ourselves so busy every day that we don't have time to be fighting with each other. And we used to forget about that. We used to be working shared, together, gathering our food together. And, you don't have to like everyone to have community. You can be in community with people you don't like. Nowadays, you can't even, be in the same room with people you don't like, because they're going to beat you up or do whatever. Like people, but it takes a lot to be in community, and to be in community with people you don't like, and to be, have a shared goal. We need to create shared goals and shared responsibilities. Like, do we have the community that our ancestors said, no, we're never going to have it? Well, we could create some kind of thing where we work together in cooperation, and we focus less on us being poor and more on what we Creator's given us. Because guess what? It's still out there. Everything Creator gave us that we lived in our own way is still out there. We could go back to living in teepees if we needed to, right? Or could we? I don't know. Some people, I don't know how to make a teepee, sadly, but I mean, I could figure it out. I guess if it took me a few years, I could make a good one. but with the way the climate is happening, like it's scary. Like, I saw that there was tornadoes in Michigan last week. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Tornadoes in March in a place that doesn't even have tornadoes. Like, I don't know. I hope everyone stays safe and really takes care of their own families and make sure that they have food and water for any kind of emergency, because they might take the electricity, they might take the grid, they might do something bad, and folks need to be prepared. And it's not scary if you're prepared, right? It's not scary if you do something that makes an impact, right? I was talking to my friend, and she's like, this is all driving me crazy, so I'm working on this, and that's putting her effort into something that's really good. Yeah, put all your anxiety into something that's good. I try to do that. I try to put it in a place it belongs, right? And give it to Creator. Really, for me, once I believe, then if you're given your worries to Creator and still holding on to them, then that's disrespectful to Creator, right? So you got to like give things up and let it go, because Creator gave us a brain and let us do in a mind and a heart, and we have to be doing making the decisions that matter to us. He's not here running everything, she's not here running everything. We have to make decisions, good decisions, and raise good people, right, and do good things.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I think that we have to get to a place now for ourselves, and all of what you're talking about, like this is the time, right? Like, so we have these problems going on worldwide, and oftentimes because we do this thing where we're just focused right here on us and our problems, we're not really looking at the greater things going on out there and how that's going to affect us. And so this is why I think Chas and I are really like hammering away at this whole thing about power and what is happening. We're in a recession, like our whole society is at risk, and we're at risk because of these rich, powerful pedophile people. And the whole Epstein file thing has, like, there's theory that Trump is starting the Iranian war, trying to fight Iran, and that Netanyahu has leveraged Iran as a way to help Trump evade criticism over the Epstein. So they're trying to turn the page so we forget about the Epstein files. So this is always usually a very, very useful strategy. And then Netanyahu himself is up for re-election. So his election is coming up. And so he needs a war to keep himself in. And then, so that's kind of like the theory of what's going on here right now with Iran. We are running out of ammunition. We do not have enough weapons to have engaging in a long strategy war with Iran, because we have given up our stockpiles to Ukraine and to Israel. So we are very weak right now. But nobody's listening to people that are saying Trump has weakened the United States. We are going into this. We're going to be in a lot of hurt and harm's way because of the decisions of leadership to evade responsibility over the sexual abuse of young women and young men or boys. So doing that. So here we are now. That's the situation that we're in. And we as people need to be standing strong in those truths, to know that we do not support pedophiles. We do not support these things, because all of this, it's gross. They eat humans, they eat babies, and it's all of this billionaire class, all the way to Rothschilds, who are about controlling the banks. And like the more you delve into it and the more you start to open your mind to listen and to think, and that's why we are sacrificed as well, because we're people of color. We own land. I mean, the land is an issue. So take our land, take our resources. We are nobodies. The rich are just eating us.
Well, take our lands but they'll come to our powwows, right? They'll come to our powwows. They like our pretty regalia, and that's the truth. It's like, but also like people. Our people have known for a long time that that's a lot of that stuff is bullshit, and a lot of those people are capable of that. And so it's scary, but also it's kind of freeing, I think, in a lot of ways. I feel very good, like as someone who's like accustomed to trauma, like it's on the other side of it, it's better. Like you understand things better, things are better. So I just keep praying that it's gonna be better for us. But I want to say too, like I think this is that the banks and the gangs, the criminals are using Trump to do this. Like this is an intent of the banks to get rid of the banking systems in both of those countries, Venezuela first, and then the other one. And to create greater Israel. I mean, those guys have been talking about greater Israel for a long time. They're also invading Lebanon. But I want people to know that, the mainstream American media is not covering the fact that Tel Aviv is getting home. They're absolutely being like, they're on fire. People are, and also a lot of people in Israel already left. Those people went home because they're not from there. So like if you're in a place where you evacuate, that's not your homeland. It's not your homeland. And so like, and also Lebanon, they invaded Lebanon. They intend to create greater Israel. This is a goal of psychopaths, and Senator John Thune and Senator Mike Rounds is just allowing psychopaths to put our service people to deplete our services, and they could just come right over here. And Russia could just come right in and take over us. I mean, or China, I would actually be okay with China because the Chinese seem actually like they care about their people. Their technology in China is incredible. They're doing quantum physics stuff and they're quantum computing and all this amazing stuff. They're curing all these diseases in the world. And here in America, we live in a shithole. And the United States is like, we pay to die. We pay to live. We pay to go to the doctor. We pay to pretty soon we're going to be paying to drink. Well, we pay to drink water. We pay. It's miserable here, and so hopefully, the billionaires. I think what they did was they pushed the they went over the edge. Trump they put all their eggs in Trump's basket, and Trump is he don't care about no one or nothing but himself. And so he's going to sacrifice everything and everyone. And that's great, and all these guys are just so afraid of him looking at him and being afraid. Hey, I want to talk too also. Did you know about the Texas, Tallarico and Crockett? Did you follow that at all? I was very happy that Tallarico got in there and very, really, I think, disgusted by the way the consultant class sort of pushed up Jasmine Crockett and made that whole thing about race. And I just think that the consultant class who run these campaigns, they said that she jumped into that Senate race because the GOP sent her a fake poll that said she was going to win. So that's what, so her team, so ambitious, they're like, hey, we need the Senate seat, we can do this. And then the team ran a really sort of consultant focused campaign. But Tallarico, who is like saying all of the good stuff, ended up, getting the vote. He's hopefully going to win. They had more people in Texas vote than they've ever had in a primary. They had like almost 3 million Democrats turned out to vote. And they had a lot of shakeups down there. So, I mean, it's huge. People are paying attention. People are doing what they can. But what we have to continuously understand is that the Democrats and the Republicans are both supportive of ICE, supportive of Israel, and supportive of, mostly supportive of this president, right? So, they're not our friends. We need a reset in the United States. That'd be great. Reset. No one who's in office can get elected again, and then just try it out. That no one is in office at all, and never again.
Yep, and that's what I kept saying. She's gonna lose, and then they're like big thing on Substack. Kamala Harris endorses. I'm like, don't matter, she's losing, and that seals the deal. She has lost the race because people know we have already done the work. We're telling you, we want a free Palestine. We want this genocide in Gaza to stop. American people don't care. We know who AIPAC's donating to. We know the deal. So, go ahead, keep on ignoring.
Did you see that Governor Newsom, though, said that Israel was an apartheid state? So either he's saying he's lying to get elected, which he probably is, but that's good for him to recognize that. It's good for everyone to recognize that, because people don't understand, that the reason why this is happening is that, the Gaza people have been suffering since 1948. You can't just walk into some country and then take it over and then continue and then act like, this latest escalation, since October 7th was now up to 260 journalists have been killed. It's an absolute tragedy, and the amount of weapons and the amount of rubble that they've left is, something that's never ever going to leave our minds. It's never going to be again. I hope Israel is dissolved, and I think that's the only possible outcome. Israel has to be, held accountable, and they're a lot of people know now that we're not doing this for us. We're doing it for Israel. And so it's gonna change. I do believe so, but I've been wrong a lot.
Christinome got fired.
That was one thing. And
Christinome got fired, and Corey Lewandowski got fired too.
He did too. I didn't see he got fired too.
Yeah, They said they let him go, but they gave Christinome a new job, but she's probably fired. I don't think that Trump is gonna, because she's no importance to him now. She's done made him whatever, so she's gone.
Well, she lied about him. She lied on his name, and so she lied, said he approved it. And did you see those things where her husband was sitting right behind her? I'm like so embarrassed for him. Poor guy, embarrassing.
I know, they just asked her. She talked about Gayapia at the congressional hearings. Have you been sleeping with Corey Lewandowski?
It just turned it into oh my God, salacious, what the heck? And then she's all like, I know how you liberal men, you attack these conservative women. You call us, you think we're sleeping together or virgins or something like that. She said, I'm just stop with the fake outrage. You're the one that's, gallivanting around the world, dressing up and all these different stuff. I mean, what an absolute tool. It shows that she's just so dumb. She doesn't see that Corey was using her or whatever. I don't know, someone's using her. But she's getting her own too, so she don't care.
I was like, what? Oh, this is what we do now. Okay.
Yeah. But they did, and I have to give a lot of credit to those the House of Reps guys. They were really they took to her, and for everyone who's been watching her since she started in the legislature here, so I watched it. I watched every single person. Yeah. So yeah. And did you hear? I don't know if we talked about it, but did you know that Trump called into C-SPAN? He pretended that he was a guy called John Barron. Oh my God, you could totally hear it was him. What a narcissist. He called into C-SPAN when they were talking about, I don't know if it was the tariffs or what it is, but you could hear it. He said, yeah, John Barron. And then I mean, what a wackadoodle. You are the president.
He's also in the Epstein files as John Barron and as Barron. So these are aliases that he has too.
Yeah. And but what an absolute like he's a crazy man. Like you've got the most powerful podium in the whole world, and you're like calling in as someone else. Like how embarrassing! Like that. Like this is the alpha male that these guys are all like worshiping. But you know they weren't worshiping them. They were just they're just racist. But did you know they're also losing the racist? That little the guy, the Groypers.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Nick
He said.
Fuentes.
Nick Fuente said, "I'm going to vote for Democrats." So, and everyone Democrats are like, "No, no, thank you." But you know, I mean,
Well, it's the whole thing. It's just like shutting down, like Matt, what is America first? So even Democrats are on that saying America first. What is America first? Bombing Iran is not America first. Funding Israel is not America first. Funding Ukraine is not America first. Like we are bleeding the American people dry. There's nobody has money.
that's right. You know, I also heard the other day, and you know, some of this stuff is anti-Semitic, right? Because it's anti-Jewish, right? But so it's like I hate to get into it, but you know, the only uh, Smithsonian or the Genocide Museum that gets a lot of any money from the federal government, a special set
The
of
Holocaust Museum.
yes, like we had to build our own Smithsonian museum. The Pequot's paid for the Indigenous museum, but no, they get like $46 million for their Holocaust museum. And they weren't even, you know, I just have to tell everyone because I didn't really understand it. They weren't even, you know, the most people killed in World War II. Like at this point, I want to just shut up, you, all you Jewish people or you Zionists who put this in our face, because I honestly think it's like, you know, Zionists and Washit Jews are kind of the same thing, right? Zionists and Washit Jews, and so Jewish people and white people who aren't Washit Jews, you know, they have the time now that they have to you know create they have to control their cousins, right? Like it's not our families that feel like this; it's your families that think that we're less than human. And so like it's a problem within them, you know, and you know, I just, you know, I'm just gonna stay away from everyone. I'm in my hermit phase. I've been alone all weekend, so I'll be happy to go back to work and to be able to talk to everyone. So.
Well, we're like past our hour, but this is
Good.
great, man. This
Yeah.
is great. Like this is really great. I always want to do things like that, and then it's like I didn't want to cut our conversation off because I think it was just a really good conversation. And Toksa Hour usually comes not really scripted, but we usually come with a topic, you know, like this is what we want to talk about or whatever. And today we just wanted to just be able to just talk about everything and anything, you know, and see where it lands. And it landed us an hour and a half.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's, you know, whatever. So I'm surprised I've been able to talk. You know, I'm fasting for Ramadan, and so it's the food is now no problem at all. But the water, like I think about drinking all day. Like I miss it. I've only got like 9 days left or something. So, and the days are getting longer. So whatever, it's like getting harder as it goes because the days. And now we just lost an hour.
Is it 1 minute? 1 minute extra a day?
Yeah, and yeah, so it gets longer and it's getting worse. So I'm really excited for that. But you know, some of my therapist asked why I was doing it. It's like, you know, because it's something that I can do. Like it's something that I can do where I feel like I'm not a part of like, you know, the regular stuff. I just want to remind myself all the time that, you know, I'm here in this place that eats souls, but I'm a life giver. I'm giving life and giving love everywhere. You know, that's what we got to do. Is just like not get sunk down by the reality of the situation and continue to, you know, give life and give love wherever you get to give it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So next week there won't be a Toksa Hour because I will not be available. I have done and I don't know if you want to join on that, Chas, but we have a person, a Democrat running for Senate, and I'm trying to find the information. My brain is dead. but she's or he, I mean, he is agreed to do Toksa Hour, just trying to find the time for him to do
Oh,
it, because
nice.
next week I'm going to be gone. And he used to be a police officer,
I
and
met
he's
him.
running. So did you?
Yeah, I met him at we had a little bit of a forum during L&I, and I met him and the other one. He seems like a really good guy. And it was funny too, because I didn't tell you about this, but I asked a question about racism. I said, how, you're a black guy, and the other one was a woman. And, how do you propose, because we had just talked about the fact that we're 80% of the prison in South Dakota. And I said, well, how do you propose, we deal with the racism in South Dakota? And the other guy who was running, who's like, I don't know if he's dropped out now, but he just like got all mad at me and made a big scene because I was calling him a racist. And I was like, no, I was calling the state a racist, but if you're identifying as one, I guess. But so that the guy who was running for Senate, like, was offended by the guy being racist to me. Everyone else in the room sort of just like accepted it as, whatever. And all the media.
Julian Boudion.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So he was real good about that. So I look forward to watching your conversation. I think, good luck to him. I think I think that it's wide open in a way, because everyone's going to be so anti-Republican at this point. Trump has really, hurt so many people. I think Republicans are done for at least a couple of elections. They're so dumb. Yeah. And
we have to figure out a way. One is, I mean, like, you and I both are like dragging our feet on get out the vote, but at the same time, it's like if you're gonna beat these Republicans, you're gonna have to get out the vote.
Yeah, well, and
You're gonna have to do a lot of different things, a lot of strategies take place, and you look at what they did with Tim Johnson. After Tim Johnson did what he did, the Republicans in this state have worked very, 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 very hard to dismantle the native vote. And so our felony list has risen, all of these things. So maybe you got a felony, now they're going to slap you with the fine so large that you're going to never get it paid off. So you still don't get your right to vote back. Like, there's a lot of things going on, like how do you work to do these things? So they just undermined us all the time, everywhere. So, and even talking about, like, this is the thing. So Nick Tilson got in trouble for this, right? They're adding an additional felony to him or whatever, simple assault, because he cussed at a police officer. So that's a thing. That's what they do to Native people. I've seen this, like, oh, well, we need to make you a felon. So let's go ahead and add. So disregard that the law enforcement officer just told you to shut the F up and told you to get the F out of the way, or even jerked you around or whatever. Let's forget that. We're going to be offended because you said F you to the police officer. Yeah. So, and then that gets you a felony, a simple assault, verbal felony. And we should be outraged and fighting that system about how they're doing it. And that's how they keep us down, people.
Well, we need to abolish the whole system. We're this carceral state is about power and control. And it is. And if we let racist white people continue to be in charge, it's going to continue to be like this. And so, we have to change it all. And, it's not just racist white people, it's racist people, because we know a lot of brown people identify as racist, right? A lot of our own people, and that's why Border Patrol and ICE is made up of Latinos. It's because, everyone wants to be next to power. White people are power here. And so we identify with white people if we want to have power. I look kind of white. I could be walking around all like power and control, but no. I don't choose that at all. I reject that. And white people who look white, or Indians who look white, need to also be rejecting that shit. There's a lot of that talk about pretend Indianism and all that stuff. I think we need to have a lot more like authentic, leaders.
white acting.
Yeah, right.
There's pretendians, and then there's white acting.
That's right, because because they're not actually sticking up for us. And so everywhere that they go, they think that we're all poor Indians who they're making great decisions about, like, oh, let's do this for the people. Well, a lot of our people now have become like liberals, like they can just move us around and do these projects, and this will be good for you, and this will be, how you do it. Anyway, we're almost done. But we could go on for 2 hours. Good Lord, Maggie.
Yeah.
You better shut us down. We could.
They took them out.
That's right. That's right. I've already said we should kill them all here, and I mean, this is better. But I feel like that. I do. Some of those people.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know. I've always just kind of felt that the manipulation of systems, and then like how we always try to figure out how do we free our children, like how do we allow them to have free thought, and how do we, or to even be Lakota and live in a Lakota world. And so I think about those things. And a colleague of mine was talking about like why they prefer to teach in a tribal college is because of all of the anti-critical race theory that's out there. Like, you can't even talk about history in a real way. You can't talk about these things in a truthful way because it's against the law now.
Yeah.
They're banning all of this stuff. So tribal colleges are basically the only place in which you can talk about the truth of history and allow for your students to be thinking about it. And so that's kind of where we're at with the struggle, right? Like, we still have public school systems that are oppressive, they're oppressing, but then they're still behaving in an oppressive way. And so it's like you have to free yourself when you become 18, if you make it through the system, and then you can go and learn and be Lakota at a tribal college. You could be Indigenous at your tribal college. But if you go to Black Hill State University, if you go to any other state institution, no matter where in the union, you're going to get some rewritten bullshit that isn't even accurate. And so that's like where we're at with what you were talking about with the Holocaust Museum, talking about the Holocaust in itself, is all revision history. And that's what they don't like. They don't like that we are uncovering and finding out that they've been lying to us from the get to all the way into college, and still trying to control that revisionist narrative so that we don't know what the truth is. So we continue to think that in World War II, the Jewish people, and there was a tragedy what had happened to them, but that they were the biggest victims. When you go into Russia and you look at the Bolshevik rebellion thing that happened there, and there were more Christians that were murdered by the Jewish state, or, there wasn't a Jewish state, but by the Bolsheviks. And so if you learn the history and you get to see the history, then you could be more objective about where we're going. But they're not allowing us that, because if you have this conversation, you're considered anti-Semitic. And so even in this, Chas, the only place that we are free to have this conversation is on a reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Because reservations did not pass a law, that anti-Semitism law. So it's in our state of South Dakota passed it. Our representative in District 21, Puri Puyer, voted for it in the House. He
did? Oh, no.
Yeah, Puri Puyer voted for it, and then Liz May voted against it.
Oh, good.
So that was pretty surprising. Liz May was a MAGA person. Maybe she isn't MAGA anymore, but she is a Trumper, but yet she voted against it.
Well, that's the shift in the MAGAs, like the MAGAs that don't like Jews, right? There's a bunch of them who hate Jews, and so maybe she's probably one of those.
She could be, because she's
Yeah,
also one of those evangelicals.
that's
There's
right.
all that crazy stuff. She lives on my reservation here. And so
Yeah.
anyways, we're almost at 2 hours, so we
Okay.
probably should
Okay.
shut it
Oh
down.
Lord. Okay. Good. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. We'll be. I'll see you again. Thank you.
Yeah, you have a good day in Pier. Go enjoy our
Okay.
river.
I will. I'm heading there. Heading to Farm Island. Thank you. See you.
Okay, so that was a wrap for us. I guess we're making up for not being live next week. I will be not available, so we will come back the week after, and hopefully then we'll have the interview with Julian Bodion. You say his name right. And I will reach out also to Allison Renville to see if she would be interested in doing a interview on Toksa Hour. So we'll see what our South Dakota Senate candidates have in for us. I think Allison is running for governor. So anyways, you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll see